Hello and welcome to the weekly market focus for two-way spreads. This is sponsored by Trend Signal for the week starting the 14th of November. So we're going to look at a number of markets today. We're going to start off with the euro dollar, looking at the daily chart initially. And what we're looking at there is a downward trending market there, very much in line with the monthly chart as well, which is very much in the bearish nature. So we're moving in line with those stronger trends at the moment. Last week we approached resistance, which we talked about in this sort of area here where my cursor is, and we started to pull back down, having tested those areas. We can see the indicator at the bottom, the trend signal indicator there, still continuing to stay red, keeping us down in line with that trend. And now here we are, some couple hundred points or so down from when that sell was first given. Support, really looking through the charts there. What I'm going to do is just put my cursor here on this dotted line here, representing support down that 132.54 level. If I just move very quickly now to the 4-hour chart, just show you, well, the other time frames are showing me just moving through a little bit of support here. This dotted line here, pretty much at current levels, that 135.32 area. And if I just compress the chart up a little bit, we can see the resistance we're talking about as well, at 137.80 area there for resistance on that 4-hour chart. Very useful chart to look at, the 4-hour. Let's just move back to the daily now and we'll look at sterling US dollar. Similar picture really, moving down in line with the monthly charts as well. Last week we saw it hit resistance, that 161.11 area identified. So that little dotted red line there, market touching it, hitting it, and then failing quite dramatically, and even testing it once again at the end of last week, and really, failing to break through that key resistance area, moving back now in line with that monthly trend as well. So a similar picture to the euro, but just not quite as weak there. In terms of support and resistance, firstly, looking at support, ultimate target down to this sort of 55.60 area, looking to the bottom of the price envelope there, this thick green line there. And as we move to the 4-hour chart once again, we start to see some of those other areas of support and resistance there as well. We can start to look at areas for support in that 158.10 area here. So looking at this red line here, 158.10, and then also this 160.70 area for resistance. So if the market tests, look for the area like this, 160.71 for resistance on the market there, on sterling US dollar. Moving to crude oil. Interesting crude oil. We talked last week about resistance in the 99.30 area. I'm just going to compress up the chart and see why. This is the market from which the market really did crash back in August. We had a pivot point there automatically plotted by the software at 99.31. The high yesterday, so very much getting up towards that area there, 99.20, just spiking just a little bit through it there. 99.69 was the actual high. Just testing that, and now we're finding a little bit of resistance, pulling back about $2 on crude oil, US crude, from that key resistance point. So it's starting to look a little bit toppy, and we're really pulling in a massive resistance area there on crude oil. So it'll be really interesting to see where how the week pans out on the market there. Support and resistance. If the uptrend resumes, then really what we need to do is just have a look at the 4-hour chart. Looking at support in that 97.06 area, that dotted red line there. Market may try and have a sniff down there, and then ultimately down to that 95.60 area there for support there on the 4-hour chart. Resistance remains intact at 99.30, so still keep that on your radar there for crude for this week. Looking at the gold chart, just looking at the daily chart there. Starting to give potentially a bit of a sell signal there. I'd recommend exercising caution because that is against the direction of the monthly chart. The monthly chart is still very much in a positive direction, so definitely exercise caution there. Looking at support and resistance, we hit our target on gold on a long side a couple of weeks ago, so not really in a trade right now. But to talk about support and resistance, very much from a resistance perspective, looking at the 4-hour chart now, just to get drill down on those numbers a little bit. Resistance 1794, you can see the top there. On a daily chart, there's resistance about 1824 if we do get all the way up there, but that's quite a long way away. In terms of support, though, we're really looking at this 1753 area. Then if I just compress the chart a little bit, key support areas we're looking at that 17.15 area there. So a couple of pivots in that area there at 17.15. So support 17.53 spot 3 and 17.15 on the gold futures there. Let's just move on and just have a look at the indices now. So first of all, looking at the FTSE, we can see again this market moving down in line with the monthly chart, very much the same with the S&Ps as well. So sell on both those markets, and the market just grinding down a little bit as the week went on. A bit choppy though, some little bullish days amongst more downward moves there, very much on the FTSE. Support at around 54.33, and just looking at the 4-hour chart there, just to drill down on that, 54.33, we just tested that earlier today, and then 53.81, we've already hit that at the end of last week. 53.81, key support there on FTSE, and resistance at 55.94. We're in quite a tight range and have been for the last week or two on FTSE, so if that tight range continues, look to those numbers to identify those support and resistance levels for you. Then finally, just looking for the S&P there, market pulling back a little bit in line with that monthly chart as well that we talked about just before, and quite a number of those markets. Support and resistance in the 1267 spot 8 area, support 1223. We can also just compress the chart up a little bit, and we can look in these areas here, 1223, 1219. So there's a number of pivot points in that sort of 1215, 1220 area that may well prove to be quite strong support there. Resistance 1267, 1273. So again, similar to the FTSE, relatively tight range and decent pivot levels there that could potentially identify quite strong support and resistance as the week goes on. Okay, well that's it from me. So thanks very much for listening, and we'll be back with you for next week's session. So hopefully speak to you then. Bye bye.